Lady Gaga has a new song out entitled "A Million Reasons." In it, she says, "I have 100 million reasons to walk away, but baby, I just need one good one to stay." And that song popped in my head when I was thinking about all the reasons not to preach about Mother's Day today. None of the texts in the Revised Common Lectionary have anything that are assigned for today have anything to do with moms. That's because Mother's Day is a national holiday, and Christianity is a worldwide religion. So the Revised Common Lectionary applies to Christianity all over the world. And it's not Mother's Day everywhere. Mother's Day was May 10th in Mexico. It was in Argentina the third Sunday in October. In Mongolia, it is June 1st. In many countries around the world, there is no Mother's Day at all. Angola, for example, Tajikistan does not have a Mother's Day. So if we want to follow the Revised Common Lectionary, that's one reason not to preach about Mother's Day on Mother's Day in America. Another reason, some people had troubled mothers due to substance abuse, mental health issues, traumatic experiences in life that reflected on their ability to be good moms, and for them, Mother's Day may awaken difficult memories. Some other women in the congregation may have chosen not to have children, may have not been able to bear children, and may feel a little left out on Mother's Day. There are a lot of reasons not to preach about Mother's Day. But baby, I need just one good reason to do so, and I know where my toast is buttered. A lot of us have had good and godly mothers who have meant the world to us. We would be nothing without them, and by George, we're going to preach on Mother's Day. On Mother's Day. And I think I found a way to do it in such a way that no one feels left out. The title of our message today is, "Who Are Your Mothers?" The key to that title is the last letter, the letter S, plural, mothers. I think most moms are filled with enough maternal instincts that they overflow beyond their biological children to reach other children. Some souls, indeed, are not biological parents at all, and some are not female at all. The guy who, for one reason or another, is left as a single dad who raises his children and keeps a household and is a provider, I think ought to be honored on Mother's Day and Father's Day. Many of us have had many mothers along the way. When my son Jim Bob here was 5 years old, we went to his namesake's house, my brother Jim. He had a big party. A lot of people were gathered there. I was sitting in the living room talking with several women who'd helped to raise me. My Aunt Rita was there. Janie Breezes, who was my youth leader for so many years growing up. Ethel Shadwick. He's got a son that lives up in Solon, by the way. A neighbor lady helped to raise me. Well, all sitting there. Jim Bob comes, about 5 years old. He's tearing around the living room, bangs into a floor lamp, and I dive for it just in a rare act of athletic prowess, just in time to catch it before it hits the floor. And as I'm putting it up, I almost say to myself, was I that bad growing up? And without missing a beat, all three of those women with one voice said, "Worse." And they said it so definitively, it kind of took me by surprise. I thought, what kind of kid was I growing up? I must have been a real piece of work. The kind of kid that took more than one mom to raise me. Even after I grew up, I did not leave all things childish behind, I guess. When a few weeks ago, I talked about being a chaplain at a hospital in Columbus during my seminary training. There was the chaplains secretary was a woman named Pauline Grube. I don't know that she was ever married. She wasn't at the time. I don't know if she had children or not. But she would just listen to us when we would have critical incidents and we were all discouraged about how things weren't working out, or if we were breaking up with our girlfriends or whatever. She would listen to us compassionately, like a Stephen minister, without judgment, confidential. You just felt free to tell her everything. I started calling her Mom. And again, I don't know if she ever was a mom, but I think she liked that title. Who are your mothers? Plural. Whose maternal instincts have guided your life in addition to a biological mother? Reverend Horak lost his biological mother when he was 10 years old. It always brings me a pang of sadness to think about that, but he's always makes the comment that there's never a good age to lose your mother. But God brought another mother into his life. His father remarried. Her name was Theda. Theda used to come to our Women's Guild Christmas dinners every year. I'd always go up to greet her. I noticed over the years she always wore the same locket. I said, "Is there any picture in that locket?" And she said, "No." And we had a little joke. I was going to cut out a picture of me and put it in the locket and have her bequeath it to Kathleen later on. So, funny little story between us. Both testaments of Scripture tell stories about plural maternal influences in a person's life. We heard the story of Moses here this morning. During a difficult time for male babies in Israel's history, while they were immigrants in the land of Egypt, their birth rate was so high they became threatening to the powers that be. And Pharaoh, the leader of Egypt, took some draconian measures to deal with that. He said, all the male babies born to the Israelites for now until sometime in the future, we're going to, as soon as they're born, throw them in the Nile, kill them all. And one mother who was pregnant took a little proactive measures, and as it turned out, when her baby boy was born, it was a boy, they put the baby in a papyrus basket and hid it among the reeds of the Nile River. And a Pharaoh's daughter, as it happens, came by to take a bath and found the baby, and must have had some strong maternal instincts going on at the time, and took the baby as her own. And then, in God's mysterious, wonder-working way, she needed, because she was not the biological mother, needed a nurse, and they found Moses' birth mother, unbeknownst to Pharaoh's daughter, who was brought in to nurse her baby. So she was able to raise her baby and get paid for doing it, which was a pretty good deal. In our New Testament, we find Paul writing a letter to the Romans and including a greeting in it, which is reproduced as a quote at the top of our bulletin. "Greet Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother, who has also been a mother to me." So there's quite a biblical precedent for mothering influences to extend beyond biological relationships. And we'll find that to be the case in our text for today, where Jesus encourages his mother to be a mother of one of his disciples. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So first we find Mary at the cross, heartbroken as she watches her beloved son being crucified. Next to her is her sister, Salome, who is married to Zebedee, whose two boys, John and James, have become disciples of Jesus. That makes them his first cousins. How do we know all this from this text? Well, this account is recorded for us in three different Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And each one describes this woman's presence slightly differently. Here she's referred to as Mary's sister. In Mark's Gospel, she's referred to as Salome. And in Matthew's Gospel, she's referred to as the mother of Zebedee's sons. So that's how we know all this. Mary has a sister. She's standing with her. She's probably been one of the maternal influences in Jesus' life, watched him grow up. Her sons would have been cousins and would have played with Jesus. And next we have Mary, the wife of Clopas. The earliest Christian writers, among them some of the early Christian fathers, have recorded for us that Clopas was Joseph's brother, Joseph the father of Jesus. I know he's Jesus' stepfather because God is his father. Well, God is our father according to the Lord's Prayer, and we refer to our dad still as dad and father. And I'm sure Jesus referred to Joseph as father as well. And Clopas was Joseph's brother. And they're all standing here. So we have this Mary, her sister-in-law, and then Mary Magdalene, about which we know very little. But they're the ones who are watching as Jesus is being crucified because they would have been maternal influences. They would have been very closely related. They were related to him, watched him grow up, and were present with him in his hour of need. What's interesting is who is not there with them during his hour of need. His brothers and sisters are not there, and the Bible tells us he had multiple brothers and sisters. There's a text in John's Gospel that says, "For even his own brothers did not believe in him." And you've got to admit, it would be pretty tough to have a brother who was the Son of God, right? You know, sibling rivalry is enough without that happening. So it took a while for them to come along. They eventually did. James, his brother, became the spiritual leader of the Mother Church in Jerusalem, for example. Let's see, who else is also not around? Well, the disciples are not around. Judas has just taken his own life. He betrayed Jesus. Peter has denied him 3 times. Such was his fear under the circumstances. All the other disciples have fled the scene because of their fear under the same circumstances. All of them save one, his first cousin, John, referred to here as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Well, he loved them all, but he had a special affinity for his first cousin, with whom we can be sure he grew up and whom he knew very well. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Dear woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. Oh, by the way, Joseph is also not present. Joseph is not mentioned since the nativity stories. We can assume that he died along life's way. Now, normally in those days, a widow who was not a viable economic unit just because of cultural practices and laws, in those days, widows would typically go to be supported by the brother of their husband. There were exceptions made to that. In this case, there probably was. When Joseph died, Mary probably came under the care of Jesus or his brothers and sisters. We know that Mary followed Jesus around in his ministry and was probably supported by him. But now Jesus is dying, and so his concern is for his mother. And most assume that that's what's behind this statement when he says to his mother, "Behold your son." But I think Mary could have easily been supported by her remaining surviving children, and would have been. I'm wondering if Jesus wasn't forging this new relationship for John's sake. John, the one disciple that stuck with him. John, the one disciple whose grief overcame his fear so that he stood by his cousin in his darkest hour. Maybe he knew that he needed that maternal influence in his life. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. But we can be certain that at the hour of our deaths, our main concern is going to be for the well-being of our loved ones who survive us. I've been with many people whose days were numbered, who knew it, and I can assure you that their primary concern is the well-being of those who must go on now without them. Early in my ministry here, there was a family whose, there was a mother and her husband. They had a daughter who was about 5 years old. The mother contracted cancer. She was treated for that, but as sometimes is the case, her treatments weren't working, and the doctors decided to stop those to begin palliative care, pain management for her. And her life was coming to an end. She did not know how to tell her daughter or her husband or her husband's mother and his sister, who was not married, had no children. They asked me to tell her, in their presence, of course. And so I went to the home, and all that pastoral care training, was brought to bear. And I told the young girl that her mother, that the treatments weren't working and that she wasn't going to live much longer. And, it was pretty tough. I mean, she said no and cried and hugged her mother. And, as much as you want your faith to be strong enough to believe in God's promises, in the face of such consequential uncertainty, boy, I just wondered what was going to become of that little girl without her mother. And her mother, you could tell that was the whole focus of her remaining life. What would become of my daughter? Well, she died, and God brought some other maternal influences into her life. Her aunt, again, unmarried, no children of her own. I watched her go into action, guiding her studies and extracurricular activities. Of course, her grandmother, her dad remarried, and a stepmother was brought in as well. But I really noticed her aunt filling in the breach. And she showed herself to be a wonderful student in school, a lot of extra activities, and they were always driving to be a part of what she was doing. She graduated, went on to college, got wow, what a career field. Systems engineer. She's making a lot more than I am. And she got married, and I'd like to think that her mom is looking down from heaven and is really proud of how she has developed and grown into such a fine young lady. And I would suspect she would also have great appreciation for those maternal influences that came into her life when they were really needed, and that in the end proved sufficient. There was a billboard coming back from the airport. You'd see it coming back to Aurora. It was along the freeway, and it had a picture of Albert Einstein on it. His hair is a mess, and he's got this funny look on his face, and the caption said, "You don't have to be an Einstein to be one." And I thought in this message, you don't have to be a mom to be one. You may, in your life right now, find that God is bringing someone within the sphere of your influence who somehow resonates with the things that you say. A child who would not listen to mom or dad, but is happy to listen to you and to tell you the things that maybe has no one else to tell. God is giving you an opportunity to be a special influence. I'd say embrace your inner mom and answer that call. This message, by the way, no way robs the spotlight from biological mothers, because I've not met a mom whose influence, instincts, love was not so great that it expanded beyond those biological relationships. My mom was a mother to Forrest Lyons his whole life. Dan Swift for most of his life. My mother-in-law was a mom to me. She used to cut my hair, tell me secrets she didn't want Nancy to know. And so if you're a mom, this is for you. This is for you for being a mom to your biological children, but also to God's children that he has entrusted to your special care. Let us thank God for them. Let us always seek to honor them with a life well lived. I'll tell you, the best way to honor somebody is to ask them, what does it mean to honor you? A mother has a fond wish for every child that they have a life that is well lived. Honor that wish of those mothers. Who are your mothers, plural? Please rise.